Welcome to Cancer season. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you all about what it means to be a Cancer, the themes and patterns that are most common with you, the best way for you to navigate your life, some of the common challenges, how to redirect them, the best way for you to set goals, and how everyone can take advantage of Cancer season regardless of your sign. So let's get into it. Now, with Cancers, you are ruled by the moon, and the moon has so many different phases. So, part of a Cancer's journey is that you're going to experience a lot of fluctuations in your life. And this is the case whether you're a Cancer rising, sun, or moon, wherever Cancer is in your chart. This is where there's going to be a lot of ebb and flow and unpredictability because of the nature of Cancer and the moon. And so you want to keep that in mind. Now, specifically, if you're a Cancer rising, this means that you have Cancer in your first house. Your first house tells you the energy that you're meant to master, the best way for you to move about in this world. Now, some people have been naturally born into an environment and your moon has aspects that make it easier for you to connect with your Cancer placement, whereas some people need a little bit more time to grow into it. Either way, your journey in this incarnation is to move about in the world in a very Cancerian sort of a way. So, this being a water sign, the best way for you to navigate your life is to be a little bit leisurely, to try not to rush the process unless you have other placements, like you have Mars here or your moon is aspected by Mars or something of that nature. And this is going to be kind of challenging for Cancer risings because you're ruled by a water sign, which is by design passive, but you're also a cardinal, which means that you start off the water energy and there's this initiating quality to you. And this adds an extra layer of challenge because part of your incarnation in this lifetime is to practice patience and trust. And this requires you to go through these challenges. This is something that the universe has conspired for you because if you set your goals and you decide to achieve something and you gain it quickly, then you don't really have as much of an opportunity to practice trust and patience. So there's a lot of delays and challenges that Cancers experience so that you can learn to trust your inner guidance system. And this is especially important for water signs, is that this is a very internal process. And it's very different from the world that we live in on Earth, where society is structured in a way where things are very linear. And yet, water signs don't operate in that sort of a calibration. So there's sort of this, you have to kind of like learn how to reconcile these challenges because we're spiritual beings here to have a human experience. And when you have dominant water sign, of course, it's important to honor your human needs, your human obligations, responsibilities, things of that nature. But water signs are going to be more energetically and psychically sensitive. So you can't neglect that area of your life because that's going to be disruptive and it's going to make it more challenging for you to manifest and materialize in the physical world. And particularly when it comes to Cancers, in order for you to initiate things, in order to move about in the world where you experience that flow that you're seeking, it's really important that you learn to feel comfortable. Because your first house and the condition of your first house, the sign that you have here, any planets here, where the planetary ruler, which for Cancers is the moon, the aspects that it has, the placements, this tells you a story of the what circumstances are going to help you to initiate and get started. And so for Cancers, it's really important for you to feel comfortable and safe, which is a polarizing difference from society that says just feel the fear and do it anyways. That's honestly not going to be sustainable for Cancers. It's just not going to work. And by trying to force it, rush the process, you're just going to cause further delay. So, something that's really important for Cancers is that you have to learn to feel comfortable and create a sense of comfort and safety within your home, within your body, and within your feelings, because these are the things that Cancer represents. And when you learn to feel comfortable within those spaces, it makes it easier for you to move about in the world. So, regardless of your living situation, what's going on, figure out the best way for you to experience emotional support, emotional comfort. Really take the time to explore what that looks like for you. And if you're like me and that's something that you struggle with, what I've done is I've looked at the feeling wheel map as a reference point. And it's basically a wheel that tells you about different feelings. And when you're not feeling great, you can identify what that feeling is. And the opposite feeling is, it tells you, like, when you're feeling a certain type of way that's negative, then you don't feel the opposite feeling. And so in order to shift that, you can you can consider, how can I incorporate a little bit more of that opposite energy to balance yourself out. It's not about ignoring how you feel, but it's about creating balance within your feelings. So that's one way to do it. And also, regardless of where you live, what your living situation is, try to find and create some sort of a comfort nest, even if you're living with other people, even if it's a little bit chaotic, because that comfort is going to be so absolutely important for you. And you also want to learn to feel comfortable in your physical body as well. That's going to be a big thing. And even with these things, one of the things is that Cancers experience fluctuations. It's just part of your journey, part of your incarnation, things of that nature. And so finding ways to anticipate and planning your life for unexpected events, for things to arise, is going to be a really strategic and beneficial thing for you to do. So for example, I've noticed that Cancer rising sometimes have difficulty keeping down a traditional consistent job that requires you to have a set schedule because of the fluctuations that Cancers go through, because especially if it's in your rising sign or it's your moon, this is about your physical body. So things can happen to you in your physical body, in your home environment, that make it difficult and disrupt your ability to show up in a consistent sort of a way that's required in a traditional work setting. And this is why I've noticed that Cancers tend to do really well with freelance, independent contractor work, being an entrepreneur, where it literally allows you to create your own schedule, and there are fluctuations that are part of the design of that kind of a work environment. So that's something that I highly recommend that you check out. The other thing for Cancers is that you want to be good about saving money as much as you can, because when fluctuations show up, when things are unpredictable, you want to be able to have money to hold you over, so that like you have something, you have a nest egg until the next cash flow shows up. And this is something that tends to happen because Venus rules finances, but Neptune, the higher octave, is about financial fluctuations. It's a water sign, and in feng shui, water represents money. And so in Cancer being a water sign, there's sort of this fluctuation with finances that show up. And what's worked for me is I like to schedule things seasonally and quarterly, have cycles to the way that I do things, manage my finances, so that I have enough money to hold me over for a few months, and then until the next few months go by, and then there's more cash flow there. It's better to work with yourself in that cyclical flow rather than trying to tame instability. Like, that's just not sustainable and realistic. So I would say look at alternative budgets and see what works for you and what works best for your habits, because ultimately that's what makes setting goals so absolutely sustainable. And that's important. You need to work with yourself rather than against yourself. Now, when it comes to setting goals, you want to be looking at your sixth house, which represents your habits, how you plan things of that nature, so that you're able to set goals in a way that work with your natural tendencies. And your personal goals are the ninth house. And so in your sixth house of habits, you have Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a spiritual sign, and it's really optimistic. So when it comes to starting your goals, again with Cancer, you have to wait until you feel ready. And then to maintain that habit, you want to work with the energy of Sagittarius, which is really optimistic, it's spiritual, it sees the higher purpose of things, and it's really inspiring. So make sure that your habits that you're setting, what you're planning, is inspiring for you. This is something that's really important. And Sagittariuses require a lot of freedom. So you want to do things where you give yourself space to roam. You want to give yourself some adaptability. Now, Sagittarius is represented by a centaur that has a bow and arrow. And so it's very goal oriented. It can be strategic, but it's not really like Virgo, where it's like minute, up close details, or like with Capricorn, with Saturn, which is very meticulous. So it's goal oriented, but in a way where you're sort of like following that inner fire, that inner passion, that inner drive. And this is why for Cancers, it's so important to learn to trust your emotions and your feelings and your intuition, and really identify what's reliable for you, what's not reliable for you, what are your red flags, how can you overcome that, because you do want to be internally led. You naturally are anyways. And when you just become honest with that, things just flow more easily. Now, when it comes to setting specific goals, the best goals for you to achieve, or the theme and the environment that's going to make it easier for you to achieve those goals, is going to be Pisces, because that's the sign that you have in your ninth house. So you want to try to find, you want to pick goals that have again, spiritual quality to it, something that's easy to sustain and manage to a degree. Fortunately, Sagittarius is hardworking, but it likes freedom. So if it's not like satisfied, then it's going to run away from its goals. So you just kind of want to stay on top of things. But as far as like your ultimate vision, you want to make it something that helps humanity in a spiritual way, that's really inclusive, because that's the energy of Pisces. So when you think about like what are your personal goals, what's important to you? For me, for example, I'm an astrologer and I have my sun there. So my personal goals involve supporting people, offering spiritual support, spiritual wisdom, guidance, and insights on career, or finding your truth energy, and healing, and working through things, and finding out what's independently, what makes you unique, what brings in your creative intelligence. This is something that, this is how it shows up for me, but it's different for everyone. Consider like whatever your goals are, look for the spiritual purpose, the higher wisdom behind it, how it's going to help people, how is it charitable, how is it compassionate, because that's going to be what really allows you to power through it. So this is really something that's so important. So let's see, we've discussed the best way for you to navigate your life, the best ways for you to set goals, some of the common challenges such as finances. Oh, and I do also want to say that I know this sounds a little crazy, but sometimes the best way for you to like live out your life as a Cancer, sometimes it might make you look like an irresponsible human, to do the right thing, to honor your inner flow. And that's because you're spiritual and intuitive, and you're in your own rhythm, you're in your own shell. That's sort of the energy of Cancer. And we live in a world that is very earthy, very particular, very linear, very structured, and that's incompatible to who we are. And because we're energetically sensitive, sometimes ignoring that part of our inner soul can be really problematic, and it can cause disruptions in our physical bodies, in our emotional, psychological state. And so I'm not saying that, we should be ignoring our human responsibilities and our human obligations. We're here to have a human experience, but also recognize that sometimes you might be moving a little bit slower than the physical world that we're in because of the nature of Cancer. And you have to sometimes learn to trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense. Now, this isn't an excuse to be irresponsible, fuck around, and not take accountability, but trust that sometimes the best way for you to do things isn't necessarily the practical, earthy way, because that's not the energy that is the most accessible for you. It's not to say that you can't have access to it, you absolutely do. And there are different ways to access that. But largely, if you're a Cancer rising, moving about in the world, trusting your intuitive inner guidance system is what you're here to do, and it's ultimately going to be what supports you. Depending on the condition of your moon and other considerations, it might be more challenging, but that's part of your journey. I do offer personalized readings where I do talk about these things if you want more guidance on how it's going to work out the best for you. So please check out my services for that. Now, for those of you guys who aren't Cancer risings or Cancer sun moon, and you want to know the best way to take advantage of Cancer season, you want to focus on Cancerian themes, things related to your home, your family, your feelings, your physical body. Check in with yourself. Consider looking at what is important to you. What do you need in order to feel nourished, supported, and taken care of? This is the energy of Cancer. And it's kind of a nice check-in to do, around the middle of the year, to see how your year has been so far. What else do you need? What's working? What's not? What feels aligned? This is the best way to move about in this space. So when your sun is in any sign, this is where you can find more truth energy there, because the sun illuminates the truth. And it's also where we can heal, where we can have we can have confidence. This is an area where we can just get more healing in this area of our lives. So if you have areas that you're struggling with when it relates to Cancer, whether it's related to your mom, your family, things of that nature, look at ways that you can heal through this in a way that feels nourishing, something that is unique, creative, something that inspires you is going to be a really great method to use. Now, when Mercury is in Aquarius, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. When Mercury is in Cancer, it's sort of the same thing, but rather than exploring what makes you feel confident, what inspires you, this can be a time where you read books on Cancerian topics. So studying about families and things related to your mother and the womb, how to maybe plan and decorate your home, sort of designing, organizing your space. This can be an excellent time, an excellent way to use that energy. And personally, one of the best ways to learn and grow is to pay attention to where Mercury is in the different signs, and you can focus on the subjects related to that sign and whatever house, which is the area of your life that it impacts. So these are just some ways that you can take advantage of Cancer season. I hope you have a wonderful summer, and if you have any questions, please comment below. And if you'd like to get a personal reading from me, you can book through my website. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!